Hey, Elliot, we're live. Welcome. Thanks in advance for doing this. Could you just take a brief second to introduce yourself? What do you do? Who are you?
Sure. I'm Elliot Murphy, and I run Kindly Ops. We are DevOps for healthcare.
Awesome. So I was a mentor in Brennan Dunn's Double Your Freelancing Clients program, and that's why we know each other. That's why we're doing this quick video interview. And so I want to start by asking you to describe your business as it was when we started working together. What was, what parts were you happy with? What parts did you want to improve, etc.?
Yeah, so this is my third time running my own business.
Ah,
And when we started working together, I had one other person working with me and had been doing some freelancing before that and was really committed to growing the business. I had tried working with one other coach. Um, Previously, I had done sort of a one-day workshop with Brennan and with Nathan Barry in Boston, and I
mhm.
really enjoyed that experience of getting to meet some other business owners and team up with people solving business problems over and over again, like getting some practice working on business. That
Mhm.
was really interesting to me, um, and and so that's where I was. I was like really looking for professional help with growing my business.
Okay. And so growth would be like revenue, headcount. Is that pretty much what you were looking for?
Yeah, both of those. So I
Okay.
knew I wanted to work with a team. I've run large engineering teams before,
Mhm.
working at bigger companies. I knew I wanted to work on a team. I wanted to create some jobs. The first job I wanted to create was one for me, but I also wanted to create a handful of other jobs. So I wasn't looking to create a 100-person company, but I wanted to be 5 or 10 people, so that we could cover for each other. We could take vacations. We could solve problems together and just have a nice team experience.
Nice. So that was, let's see, we're here in almost August. That was like January-ish
Yeah.
time frame. What's where are things now?
Uh, things are great. We now have 6 of us collecting paychecks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've got a bunch of happy customers. We've got multiple programs in place. Inbound marketing. We're starting Monday. We're starting an outbound sales program. We're working through a channel program with a big partner, Amazon. We have a video course almost done. Working on a book project. Speaking at a bunch of conferences. Like, sort of feels like things are firing on all cylinders. It's been a really good 6 months.
That's great. So, uh, how did you make that happen? And like, what are two or three things from what what you learned from this program that you would share with others that like would be takeaways they could maybe apply to their business?
Yeah. So I was particularly interested in working with you. I was kind of on the fence about like the DYFC thing. It seemed interesting. I had worked with another consultant and wasn't really getting traction, so I was a little bit on the fence.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a big fan of Charlie Munger,
Mm-hmm.
who is Warren Buffett's partner, lesser known partner.
Yeah.
I had read a bunch of their ideas about business, and one of the really powerful concepts from Charlie was you need to learn multiple mental models.
Ah.
And so um, I read your book about positioning
Mm-hmm.
and was just like totally struck by how much you understood the background of where I was coming from, and like put it all together in this model where you could like apply it to multiple different businesses and like work through the steps and see how this one fits and see how that one fits and like I wanted to get some help working through that process. So the key things for me, going through that 6 months when working with the other people in the cohort, were positioning. Like, I thought it was a good idea when I went into the program. Now I think it's critical, right? It is
Right.
like it's lifeblood. Value pricing. So that was a really, really big concept for me to learn. And not just value pricing like, oh, here's how you get a bunch of money out of someone.
Hmm.
Value pricing like, how do you make sure that things are priced so that both people involved in the transaction are getting really great value,
Right.
and are delighted with the results? And like working on making the business healthy and keeping both sides delighted, not nobody feeling shortchanged. Like that was a really positive experience for me. And then like the third key thing for me, I think, was realizing that sales was not about convincing.
Mm.
Like people need to be convinced, but sales is not about like trying to talk someone into buying something. It was more about checking for fit, and that if
Mhm.
someone was not a good fit, you would never allow them to buy something that wasn't right for them. And that completely changed like how I interacted with my customers and the amount of stress I felt when approaching a sale.
Mm.
I got to be on their side instead of you know, trying to talk someone into buying something. We got to talk about a problem together, and if they were a good fit, we could do some work for them. If they were not a good fit, there's no way we would sell to them.
That's awesome. Can I ask a few follow-up questions on those?
Sure.
So, I mean, what was the process with your positioning? Like, how did that? I mean, I know, but for the
Yeah.
folks at home listening, what was the process there?
So I think I started out the way so many people, technical people, do. You go through a big chunk of your career focused on skills. So you're doing skills building. You get out of school, you start figuring out how to build things, you start figuring out how to solve problems, and you're all about the skills.
Yeah.
And then when you start freelancing, you start selling those skills. Um, and like that's just a recipe for like staying at the bottom of the barrel.
Mm.
Um, and it's really not, it doesn't match the experience that you have when you're working on a product team. Like you get a bunch of smart people together and they go solve a problem. You have people who have a bunch of different skills, and inevitably over the couple of years it takes to build a product, you learn a whole bunch of new things. And so as a business owner trying to explain to someone how you can help them, they really want to know how you can help solve a problem, and that you will take care of making sure all the right skills are brought to bear on the problem. And that was just a huge change.
Mm. Nice. Um, the selling comment, of course, resonates very deeply with me because I've always hated the idea that selling was applying force or even like tricky persuasion
Mhm.
tactics. And I feel the same way about marketing, that they really aren't that different. They're just kind of part of one continuous process, right? Um, what like so I mean, what were you doing in terms of sales before? You don't have to incriminate yourself if you were like strong
Yes.
arming people, but what was it like?
No, we weren't strong arming people. So we started off by asking for referrals. I've worked in technology for 20 years and knew a bunch of people. And
Mm.
when I made the decision to start freelancing, started asking people, hey, do you know anybody who could use someone who knows how to do the things I know how to do?
Hmm.
Um, and inevitably, you get some deals that aren't really a great fit, and the customer is asking a bunch of questions about like, why does this cost $6 instead of $5? And um, and then and then realizing that like that's actually a flashing red light about like whether or not you're solving the right problem for them and whether you're providing value to them. Because if they're asking about $1, they're not delighted that they're getting 10x return on the investment that they're making
Yeah.
with you. And so it really changed. Instead of going after who is most convenient to talk to doing more research on what companies were most likely to have um, the types of problems that I was interested in solving based on their life cycle, like like uh, where they were along the growth curve of being a company, how many people were working there, how much revenue they had, and or investment, in order to be working on their product. And so that changed it from just being like talking to someone who was convenient and desperately trying to find a way that I could do some work for them, to going and approaching companies who had never heard of me and making the case like, I think you have these problems, and here's what we do to help people solve those problems. And that completely changed things.
That is really interesting. I guess this is a bit of a softball question. Elliot, it sounds like so much work to do all that research. What's the upside?
The upside is charging more and happier customers.
Okay.
So,
I knew that was going to be the answer, but
yeah,
I mean, for folks listening, this is not some scripted thing. This is me putting Elliot on the spot with questions that he's hasn't been prepared for. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not surprised to hear that, right? You get better customers when you do that bit of research.
absolutely.
So you told me a story that is now one of my favorite stories because it fits the archetype of the walking off the stage and getting hired archetype. Can you tell folks that story?
Was this the one where I walked off the stage and someone was waiting to talk to me?
Yes, which, of course I'm dramatizing that to say they like put money in your hands, but I'd love for you to kind of unfold that story a little bit.
Yeah. So I was specifically trying to um, speak at more conferences, and that is a thing that's not super comfortable, and it takes a lot of work to do. So it was really like I had gotten a talk accepted, and it was getting down to the wire. I had been super busy, and I was like this close to canceling. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna do it. What's like the worst that could happen is I'll do a terrible job and nobody want to talk to me again. So um, I just stayed up late the night before and threw a bunch of slides together, sort of massive brain dump of everything I could think of about the subject. This was about containers, Docker containers in regulated environments.
Okay.
And I think the reason I was struggling with the talk so much is because I felt like I didn't have any silver bullet to offer people. Like, just do it this way, everything will be fine. And so the talk turned into a giant survey of like, here's the current state of the world. And, not trying to sell anybody anything, just trying to say, look, it's complicated. Here's all of these moving parts, and here's where things are. So I did that talk the next day, and people were really, really happy with it. I was totally surprised. So I finished, and there were actually a handful of people there waiting to talk to me. One of them was working at a cancer research company, and said, "Hey, that this is all really interesting. We know we're going to be facing these kinds of problems. It sounds like you've thought about it a lot already. Do you do consulting?" And shortly thereafter turned into a customer. So that was absolutely worth going to the conference. And it wasn't that I was trying to sell, it was just that I was talking about these problems and they happened to be a good fit, so they approached me.
I love that story because it's that has that sort of sexy element of kind of walking into work. I know it took time after the event for that to come to fruition, but also love that you were scared out of your pants the day before, which is a very common experience for that kind for a lot of marketing, really. So is there anything else, like any kind of like last bit of like, oh, you should think about this if you were in the position I was in 6 months ago, that you would share with people?
Um, like doing the work of thinking about the business, like to really think about not just trying to close a deal this week, but actually thinking about what is this business going to be like? What is my experience going to be like working with this group of people, customers, employees, if you have them, and think about what your customer's experience is going to be like working with you and what your experience is going to be like actually doing all of these things that you set out to do. Because there's a lot of different types of businesses and kinds of work that you could do, and you can set yourself up for something that you're going to be miserable with. But you get to make that decision. So like actually taking a step back and thinking about, what is this thing that I'm making? Does it have the shape that I really want?
That's awesome. So, I mean, what kind of person would benefit from the, type of mentoring that I do, and what kind of person would not benefit from that or is not a good fit?
Um, I think that the person who's not a good fit is someone who's relatively inexperienced and insecure.
Okay.
And sometimes those go hand in hand, and sometimes they're independent. But if you don't have at least a couple of years of experience delivering work to people and getting paid for it, you're going to have a much harder time being able to think about business problems that you could solve for money. And if you don't have the sort of self-confidence to make some decisions about your business and test some ideas, you're going to be just stuck second guessing everything and asking other people to make decisions for you, and that's just a recipe for disaster, I think. But if you've got a couple of years of experience, hopefully you'll have done a little bit of freelancing, and are ready to like make some choices, then working with you on positioning is a great thing to take your business to the next level.
Thank you. Yeah, I have to agree. You just learned so much during that first year or two, full-time freelancing. It's a steep learning curve. It was for me. Oh God, it was so steep. And I think you're right. So, Elliot, thank you so much. Where can folks listening to this find out more about your business, see what it looks like today, kind of reverse engineer your marketing to see what's allowed you to hire 5 people or 4 people in the last 6 months?
Yeah, we are at kindlyops.com, kindlyops.com.
Great. Well, again, Elliot, thank you.
You bet.